The finished film for the first time?
I never see the film finished for the very first time. I mean, I wrote it, I directed it, I edited it, I worked on it. So it's never the first time to me, but probably he's gonna be much more skilled to answer this wonderful question.
I saw it the end of last year, and I was very taken by it. And the first thing I said to Rodrigo, I don't know if you guys feel this, but the first thing I said was that it feels kind of like a film that was made in like 1973.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much got that aesthetic and that's those sensibilities, I think.
Did the twist surprise you when you watched it like it surprised us? I guess you knew it was coming.
I read the script. I don't know. I don't see this movie as a twist movie.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's the main thing. But it's always good to have people talking about it. You know, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, Rodrigo, because as you said, you wrote the film, edited it, directed it.
I apologize for the few things.
What attracted you to this? Because I think about your first film, The Contestant, and then of course Buried, and then this. I think there are some common themes throughout, but in terms of the surface subject matter, they're very different. So what led you to want to do a film about this world that we saw in Red Lights?
Well, I guess I always been interested in the hidden side of things, what happens on the other side of the curtain. So I started with these two words, paranormal hoaxes. That sounded fascinating to me because they were in a way two antagonic words clashing each other. You have the paranormal, which is the magic, what cannot be explained, and you have the hoaxes, which is people lying. And that's a perfect background for a hopefully and potentially compelling film, because you can have the elements of the genre, the same tools, but you can have a very touchable sense of reality, this tangibility. Actually, Cillian is totally right. I wanted the film to share the code of a political thriller of the 70s in a way. So you get this very dense sense of atmosphere that you almost can't touch, but this sense of conspiracy with investigation about to destroy the investigators. In this case, they are not journalists, like in All the President's Man or films I can remember, Parallax View, but scientists.
And Cillian, what attracted you to the project? Had you thought about the world that we saw in Red Lights a lot before you decided to take the part?
No, you just go after the stories, the good stories, and it really is, there's no particular strategy or anything, it's just you wait for the good scripts to come along, and this one, you read scripts and unfortunately nowadays you can tend to predict kind of quite quickly where they're going, but with this one I couldn't. And that for me is always a great, sign that you've got something that's quality here. And then obviously I'd seen Rodrigo's movies and you knew that instantly he was the real deal, so I just really wanted to be involved.
Did you double check that he wasn't going to try to bury you in a box at any point?
It became clear that there was no small spaces in this film.
I only bury Canadians, by the way.
Take note, everyone. I'm always fascinated as a lover of film by how both directors and actors immerse themselves in the different worlds that they're going to portray before they start rolling. And I read that both of you really dove into this world in terms of research.
Yeah, I did about a year and a half of research, studying both sides actually of the debate, the side of the skeptics and the rationalists and the scientists, and the side of the believers, so-called psychics and parapsychologists. So I needed to face tons of material, books, reports, files, videos, footage, stills, audio, you name it, and interviews with both sides too. The funny thing is that I found out that they tended to behave in a very similar way. No matter what they claim to do, they usually only accepted things that confirm their previous positions. Right. And they rejected what put them at risk, which means that we all believe what's more convenient for us to believe, which in a way is in the origins and in the roots of this content.
And Cillian, you went to Vegas, right?
Yeah, that just happened to be going to Vegas. No, I wanted to, because I think that De Niro is he's kind of an amalgam of the Vegas style guys like Copperfield or Chris Angel, but he's also like a faith healer or like a televangelist or a psychic. So I wanted to try and cover all aspects of the research if possible. And So yeah, that was the sort of showbiz aspect of it. But then I read a lot of material. There's this guy James Randi. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. He's a great a former magician, now skeptic, and he's got great material out there to read. And there's so much stuff out there. But and Rodrigo gave me lots of materials. But ultimately, it becomes about the characters. You have the world of the film, which is the paranormal and all that. But then you have to put that aside and just concentrate on this sort of what's driving the character's psychology, the character's emotions. That becomes the most important part of it.
Any questions from the floor at this point? Oh, very enthusiastic. That was the most enthusiastic from the floor. I think we have a microphone coming to you as well. By magic.
Really like the film.
Yeah. We're going to pass it down.
That enthusiasm is as well.
Can you do the hand again? Because that was like the most...
8 years professional student, I got that sucker down. Speaking of films from the 70s, to me this just screamed a lot of my old favorites like House by the Cemetery and Deep Red and Suspiria. You really seem to do this well. I know your previous works are a little more, I guess you could call gritty, realistic. Are you tempted to go more into the genre which may or may not include paranormal, like a lot of those old great movies from the 70s by Argento and Fulci?
To me, again, it's never about genre. I mean, I believe in two genres, good films and bad films. And I actually, if I'm sincere, I like examples of both sides. But actually, in a way, in this film, we also have this way that you are developing now. At the beginning, we start in a much more objective way. We feel that this is a kind of thriller with certain touchable elements. We feel very comfortable as an audience because we know that everything that we are seeing cannot be true. We learn, we are taught that this kind of paranormal phenomena cannot exist. If we have a question, our mother is there and she answers our question, but then something happens. Well, you have seen the film. Then we kill Sigourney and we become orphans. And so does Tom. And from that moment on, the movie becomes much more subjective, much darker, and much more abstract, even in terms of shooting. So we enter much more disturbing territories. And that's actually one of the reasons why Cillian was perfect for this role. First, because he's so skilled, he's an amazing actor. He never pretends, he always is, and he makes anything works. Whatever you give him, he can be truthful with that. But again, he's the only actor that can turn a romantic comedy in a horror film with a blink of an eye. And I needed this ambiguous and ambivalent nature. So, in a way, I have both sides in one. So you can choose one and hate the other one.
Do you wear that with a badge of pride that you could turn a rom-com into a horror with the blink of an eye?
I don't know. You just you try and serve the character really, and obviously this. I think what Rodrigo's talking about there is like duality, and there's a great theme of duality in this film. Like you said the film is like a film of two halves, and also the characters all have these kind of dual personalities. And I think Tom definitely has this dual personality. But for me, ultimately, it just became. For me, it's a film about self-acceptance, really, and obsession, and those are the themes that jumped out at me.
Other question from the floor? The thing there.
First of all, thank you for filming it in Toronto. It was great to see our city on screen. My question is, speaking of killing off Sigourney, we were just sort of talking around over here. We're not 100% sure, and perhaps that's what you intended to do, leave it vague, how she died. Were we supposed to believe that it was Silver that was doing it all along? Or did you do it? Me
personally, I had not.
Just wondering.
Well, I'm sure I don't want to speak for Rodrigo, but for me, I just love these questions because that's the point of it, is that it should have you guys chatting, and it should have you guys talking, and it should have you guys, trying to figure it out. And we never came down with any sort of hard and set answers. It was just about trying to tell the story it was some, we knew the path we were going to take, but I think it's subjective. It's about what everybody interprets it, how everybody interprets it personally.
What do you think?
Do you believe? Do you guys believe now?
That's another question. No, believe me, everything in a way that you have to adapt. Even when you take a certain option or decision. At the beginning, you totally know where you are. Then you change your mind. And you actually change your mind a couple of times. And all of you actually change your mind at the same time, but you change it a couple of times. That's what's going to happen, what has to happen. That's why everything is so physical. For instance, I love the beginning of Poltergeist when everything is physical, when you see the girl on the floor and she slides with the football helmet, or this pyramid of chairs, or whatever. I like it more as a filmmaker. I love the film, but I like it more than when you see the hand coming out of the set or blue spirits or whatever, because you feel that it could happen in front of you. It's like you are angry now and everything starts to tremble around. It could be you are like as a projection of your psychic energy, or it could be the underground, or it could be an earthquake, or it could be a setup, or whatever. So whatever you think that happens in the film, no matter how spectacular the phenomenon is in this very moment, the other possibility is also possible. So that's what it is about. At the beginning, we learned that this character of Silvers has a past, and that they claim that he maybe killed this journalist with his mind or whatever. Then we see also this black and white footage when we see this Russian psychic claiming to do exactly the same. Then she dies, but we also saw her taking pills. So she has a kind of disease and probably she was very sick. And you have to adapt. That's what it's about. If I wanted to have included the solution would be there. The thing is that most of the films, when they end, when the end credits start to roll, you start to forget them. And the day after, you simply don't know what they were about. And all films, and hopefully this is one of them, resist to abandon your brain. And you find yourself in a process of digesting and trying to remember the film and rewind it and discussing different theories with your friends or whatever. So when I hear different theories, all of them are valid to me. I have my own one, but it's a theory too.
Well, it's interesting. Somebody asked if you're a believer, and it's interesting to me the last few lines of the film include, you can't deny yourself forever. And you talked about the similarities between skeptics and believers, and in a way, each of them deny themselves the possibility that the other is correct. So for you guys in researching this world, did your views of this world of the psychic paranormal change at all?
It's a fascinating world, like when you delve into it, and it's fascinating, that people need to believe and people want to believe, and sort of intelligent, rational, clever people will sort of put reason aside. I am open, I am curious, but I'm personally still skeptical. That's not to say I'm cynical, but I'm just, I've yet to be convinced. That's me personally.
Any other questions from the floor?
Hi, I just wanted to say, in a world of like prequels and sequels and reboots, I just find that this is really original storytelling. And my question is, in the writing process, did you know how it was going to end? Did you have it all planned out before you went in, or as you were writing the story, did it evolve and change?
I actually just figure out. It's something that happens on the writing. I never use treatments. So I know where I'm going to start from, I know where I'm going to end up, and I know a couple of villages I want to visit. But I'm open to take other roles. And everything comes out from out of the characters. That's the I love set pieces and action, but they have to come out from the characters because you have to care. So it was logical to me in a way, because this was this story of self-acceptance. When you start finishing the first draft, in a way you see for the very first time in a very clear way what you really wanted to tell through your story. So on the rewritings, or I'm going to try with rewriting. In the rewritings, you start to point every detail pointing to that end that you want to achieve, whatever it is. So it's a kind of mix, but you constantly know where your characters are in rational terms and what the relationship between them would be considering those psychologies. And that's what you play with. Then it's a kind of natural evolution that you also control from the outside. I managed not to answer those questions.
Cillian, what did you think the first time you read the script? Because with films like this, with mysteries, thrillers, I love it after, and if there is an ending that kind of pulls the rug out from under you, it's always fascinating to go back and watch it a second time, because often the hints are in front of you, and you've been intentionally misled, like it's so many cases in this film. So when you finished the script, was the rug pulled out from under you? What was your reaction?
Yeah, it was, and that's like I said earlier. I couldn't predict where it was going, and that's original writing to me. And again, I don't think of it in genre terms or think of it in anything like that. I just think of it as story that is compelling, and I think the character that is compelling. And this was that script. And then you go back and you read it again, and you talk to Rodrigo, and he answers some things, he doesn't answer other things, but that's important too. And I'll go back to the thing of I like coming out of a cinema or a theatre and still thinking and talking about a film. And you can have very strong opinions, and that's good too. I enjoy that.
Are you attracted to mystery? Because I think back to a lot of your roles, especially Red Eye, 28 Days Later, Sunshine, there's always this element of mystery and figuring something out, it seems, in a lot of the films you're involved with. Are you attracted to that?
I have no idea. I genuinely don't. And people draw like a thread between various films or whatever, but I just try, you don't know what's going to come next. Yeah. I guess I have stuff that I like and stuff that I don't like, and things that I don't want to repeat myself, and challenges, but there is no plan whatsoever.
Meanwhile, we're at home trying to figure out the meta themes to your career, right?
Tell me, I don't know.
Another question from the.
Do you do magic, Cillian? Yeah. Well, you were doing a little bit. Do you do?
I got to do the coin thing. I had to learn to do that. Oh yeah. do that and the lip thing. But it's very rudimentary. It's not that accomplished really. But it's better than we didn't want to have a double. We didn't want to CGI it or anything like that. So. You learn, but I love the fact that he's a scientist and a rationalist, the character, but yet he's interested in magic and sleight of hand. It's a lovely contradiction.
So it's not a CGI robotic arm.
No, that was me. I got good for a while, and then I'm terrible again. So.
With the microphone down there? Yes, the young lady.
I have a question regarding the main character. We don't see a lot of context for him, so I found myself going along with him, but wondering what his motivation was. Can you explain the rationale behind not giving a lot about the background, other than a little snippet of story which he did not confirm or deny? But there's not a lot of context around your character that asks the audience to come along until the very end, and you talk about denying yourself, which kind of took me by surprise. Because there isn't anything else to anchor that character around. So could you explain that the rationale behind leaving the character so bare and not a lot of context around him? Thanks.
I think I cannot. I mean, if I wanted to include that in a rational and obvious and external way, I would have had. In my opinion, and this is only an opinion, in a way you start directing actors from the writing. And with the writing and through the writing, you get a certain sense of past or complex psychology, whatever, even on things that you are not saying. If I think of Matheson 30 years ago, I have a very clear idea of how she was. I don't know if that happens with you. If I think on whoever, Sally, the girlfriend, I can imagine her first boyfriend, for instance. So with him, I have a certain sense of past that we actually discussed, that I didn't want to put there. On the other hand, this that you felt is exactly what the other characters are feeling. Actually, there's a moment when Dr. Matheson is driving with him, and she asks him, "What are you doing with me? Where did you? Do you remember that? Where you spring from?" That's something that I want you to feel. Maybe you didn't feel committed with his character for whatever reason, which is fair enough, and I totally respect. Other people feel very committed with him, so it's very difficult to explain how and why these things happen. I never wanted him to be felt like likable or whatever, or this or the other thing, because I wanted everybody to feel lost in a way. At the beginning, he's like a secondary role. He lives comfortably on the shadow of Dr. Matheson, and he looks like a young deer or a innocent Boy Scout or something like that. And little by little, he enters darker territories, which is the part that I find interesting. And the motivation seems to be a kind of obsession. For whatever reason, he's obsessed with his work, whatever. He's the ultimate challenge. So I really want to debunk him. But little by little, it's not that he wants to debunk him, it's that he needs to debunk him. And that he's not going to accept any proof that confirms anything, because he starts with his conclusion and he builds a group of theories around, which is exactly what the other group does in his words. So he starts to behave like in a less likable way. And you start to doubt, maybe he's not right, maybe Silver has his reasons, maybe he has a mission or something at the end of the day, and he's so tired because nobody wants to listen to him. And at the end, you understand what his motivation was. And you understand that he was maybe looking for himself, or looking for a mirror he could face or show himself in, or whatever. You still are going to have doubts, because you don't know if he knew who he was for the whole story, and he was living living in silence, trying to fight against what he was in order to find someone like him. Or maybe he was simply living in denial, and she knew what he was, but in a very unconscious way, until he has to face himself. I don't know. I mean, I know because I wrote it, and I exactly know how he feels. But you should have this doubt.
Can I tell you my two theories that I was working with as I was watching the film?
Of course.
For the first time?
If they are smarter than mine, I will use them in the next.
No, mine. You're just going to shake your head disapprovingly. I thought Tom, initially I thought he was the living embodiment of Sigourney Weaver's son, and that we were in an alternate sort of reality, an alternate future. My other theory, because of the scene with Robert De Niro and the line of what looked like salt, I thought you were a demon. Anybody else think Cillian was a demon? Did you ever think as you were reading it, maybe I'm a demon?
No, I've had people say, is he an angel? I've had people say all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But again, isn't that great?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to sort of say one thing or the other, because I hope that you can figure it out, or else just talk about it, or tell us other people to go to see it.
Okay, so we've got to wrap it up right now. The film opens July 27th. Please do tell folks about it. A big thanks to all of you for coming. And please round of applause.